a new task force to protect abused animals, and a new children's book about a rescued animal. We'll have the stories next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome to City Corner. A little bit later in the program, we're going to meet Marshall the Miracle Dog and hear a very inspirational story, really. But first, to please welcome our guest from Stray Rescue, Jason Shipkowski. Hi, Jason. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
We have an inspiring story later, but boy, it's a serious topic to begin with, the whole issue of abused animals.
Yes, it is.
How serious is it?
It's very serious, and but the good news is that so we're taking some great steps forward, particularly lately, to combat abuse and neglect in the city.
Just recently, Mayor Francis Slay commissioned a task force, the mayor's task force, in response to, I don't know if it was a response to this one particular incident, but this certainly highlights it. Earlier in the year, there was a St. Louis man that was arrested for killing 5 animals and leaving them in a vacant building.
Yes, we responded to the case. We were actually called by a police officer to the scene. It was in the spring, and what we found was really the most horrendous abuse scene we've ever seen.
Before you go any further, I think a neighbor was alerted because a neighbor saw a dead, I think there were 5 adult pit bulls.
Yes.
And a neighbor spotted an animal, I guess, dangling from a window or in a windowsill.
Yeah, it was, you know, not to get too graphic, but yeah, there was a dead dog hanging from a windowsill. There were dogs in the house that were strangled with extension cords. They were skinned. It was an extremely gruesome scene.
And you were there yourself for that?
A couple of our rescuers and our founder, Randy Grimm, were there. I subsequently was there once we started handing out reward flyers to people in the community to try to find this person.
Without focusing too much on this one case, and it is extreme, obviously, why does a person do that? Was there ever an explanation, really?
That's a really, really good question, and I think there are a lot of studies going on to try to figure out, and there's, you know, you can't argue nowadays that there is a huge correlation between, you know, domestic violence and violent crimes and animal abuse. So even if you're not an animal lover per se, it's a really important thing for everybody in the community to get on board with this task force and, you know, understand that these just in general aren't people that you want in your community. And so, you know, it could be cultural, it could be, you know, just some people just don't value animals as much as other people, but it's very unfortunate.
Someone's got a problem.
Yes.
Well, that's an extreme example, but maybe we should talk a little bit about what constitutes animal abuse. That, of course, is extreme.
Yes.
What else does it entail?
Well, I mean, there are various levels, and from state laws, there's you know, there's abuse, neglect, and abandonment. Abandonment being under kind of the neglect umbrella. But you know, I mean, from starvation and dehydration to keeping dogs and cats in, you know, conditions on big chains, or, you know, not if they don't have access to water or food, if they're living in their own feces, things like that. That, of course, like the case we saw in the spring, you know, just severe abuse and you know, really criminal behavior.
Yeah, we're going to hear the story later of Marshall the Miracle Dog, and Marshall came from an animal hoarder. And I would think some animal hoarders don't even realize they're abusing animals. Would that be true?
Yeah, that can be very true, absolutely. I think when you get into that kind of serious, you know, hoarding mentality, I think that, yeah, it can be you know, an illness.
Well, we have a couple of pictures we want to take a look at. This just, I think, Stray Rescue in action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is our founder, Randy Grimm, and this was a rescue also in the spring, and this is Jasper Jones, actually, and this was a great rescue. Jasper is an amazing dog and has since recovered wonderfully.
So the dog has a first and a last name.
Yes, yeah. We have to get pretty creative with the names. If you're ever down in our shelter looking around at some of the names of the dogs, it helps to have themes. I think we've done Star Wars, we've done all sorts of things. Huh. This was another case shortly after the image you just saw, Jasper. This was Norm, and this is our clinic at Stray Rescue. Norm, we suspect, was a victim of dog fighting, bait dog most likely. he actually lost one of those front legs because it was just torn up so bad, and we found him in the sweltering summer heat, but has since made an amazing recovery and is about to be adopted. So we see a lot of abuse, but we also see a lot of very hopeful, happy stories as well, and we have a great success rate with medical and behavioral recovery. And this is Strax, and Strax is actually a very iconic stray rescue dog, and our emergency medical fund, which is the main cost driver at stray rescue, was named after Strax. And so Strax was found with his throat slit, his ear cut off, he was shot twice, he had all sorts of issues, but a miracle dog. He spent a little over a month in the clinic and pulled through. So lots of hopeful, strong stories.
Yeah. Could you give us a little history on stray rescue? And I've done this show for a long time, and I'm sure 8 or 9 years ago I did a show with Randy Graham. That's how long it's been. But he's been doing this for a while. Can you tell me a little background?
He has been doing it for a while. Stray Rescue is an organization. We've been a 501c3 charity since 1998. And but Randy, our founder, he has been rescuing since he was probably 5, I imagine. He's been he's just a very, very passionate person that has been doing it and pretty much dedicated his whole life to it. And he has done, personally and with Stray Rescue, made some great strides in kind of changing the landscape for companion animals in the city.
Well, tell me a little bit how your organization works. I mean, do you have a facility somewhere, or do you have a hospital, or do you use other veterinarians? How does it all come together?
All of the above, yes. We have, our main facility is on Pine Street downtown, 2320 Pine Street. And so what our main mission is to rescue abandoned, abused, and neglected dogs. And but we take a very holistic approach to sheltering and rescue and adoption. And so we don't just stop at things like the task force or rescue and sheltering and adoption. We also focus a lot on community outreach and preventative things. So for instance, right now we have a really great program where we're out in the community, and it's a very comprehensive spay and neuter program. And the whole point of the program is to kind of canvass neighborhoods, get on the street, meet people, and essentially make friends and develop relationships with people and offer them information and resources to help their pets. And so with that program, we do spay and neutering, vaccinations, and microchipping. And it's going really, really well.
A lot of this could be prevented, couldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's an uphill battle, certainly, but you have to start somewhere, and also getting in schools and talking to kids and things like that. There have been some pretty vast improvements. We still have a long way to go, but a lot of people are doing a lot of great things.
We have some images now, Jason, I want you to take a look at and talk about. When I first saw these, I was shocked. What they are before and after pictures. Dogs, I guess when Stray Rescue found them, and then after they've been rehabilitated, nursed back to health, or whatever term you want to use.
Yeah.
And when I first saw the pictures, I was thinking, it took me a second to realize it's the same dog. So why don't we take a look at some of
they
these.
are very striking. This is Palomar, and I always tell people that I could talk till I'm blue in the face about Stray Rescue, but these before and after pictures, they're just so striking, and they really speak volumes as far as what we do, the kinds of cases we see, and the resiliency of these dogs and cats. I mean, they really do overcome just tremendous abuse and neglect to become these amazing, family dogs that, not only, I always say not only do people save these dogs' life by adopting them, but also the dogs enrich the family's life, so the individual's life. I mean, they just have a tremendous amount of love to give.
Let's look at the next one.
Yeah, another striking one. We see a lot of mange and skin issues as well that, those make for very striking before and after pictures too, because, we'll find a dog that is just, crusted over and no fur, and then they become just these kind of a beautiful butterfly.
Yeah, because I guess some have been just maybe on the street for, who knows how long.
Yeah, and there are some packs where, Randy and our rescuers have fed packs for, up to a year or a couple of years.
It's hard to believe those are the same dogs.
I know, it is very, very hard to believe.
This is a kind of a general question, but how long would it take, just for example, the dog we're looking at right now, for a dog to go from that to back to good health?
Yeah, it's a good question. It depends on, the severity of the case. Sometimes it can take a few weeks. Sometimes it can take a couple months. It can be a lengthy process.
Tell us a little bit about the Strax Fund Matching Grant Campaign.
Yes, that's the Mary Lou Shanahan Foundation. Very, very generous people. They announced just a couple months ago the Matching Grant Campaign, and so what that is anyone who donates specifically to the Strax Fund, our emergency medical fund, by March 30th, they will donate up to $135,000. Like I said, it's over $1 million a year for emergency medical care at Stray Rescue, so it's needed constantly. And so if anybody wants to donate, they can go to our website. There's a PayPal link there. They can go to thestraxfund.org. On our homepage, there's a little story that talks about the campaign currently going on now, and so it's.
We'll have some contact information for you coming up when we're done with the program, though. But how are you funded generally?
Strictly individuals, foundations, grant writing, things like that. So.
Do you have enough money?
Not always. We are definitely not an extremely wealthy charity by any means, because we do. Everybody is very dedicated to, as much money as possible that we get goes directly to the mission, directly to rehabilitating these dogs and cats.
What would you tell someone watching the program right now that comes across an animal who hasn't walked down the street and seen a cat or a dog that looks in distress? What should the average person do?
Well, there are a couple things to do right away. If you suspect it's abuse, neglect, or anything like that, or if it's just a roaming dog, you can always call the Citizen Service Bureau. I know that their number is online, and we have a pretty close partnership with the city, so we usually see those Citizen Service Bureau reports all the time, so we're very aware of what's going on. So regardless of whether or not you call Stray Rescue or the Citizen Service Bureau, Stray Rescue will know about it, and we can respond. Things to look for are, if the dog is on a big chain, if they're skinny or emaciated, if their living conditions are poor, if they don't have any adequate shelter, and of course if someone's beating them or things like that.
I've got to tell you something I did once, and I'm sure it was illegal. And so you're going to advise people not to do this? Why are you laughing? You haven't heard my story. It was years ago, and I was living somewhere where this dog was being abused in a building where I was, totally ignored, left outside. A big dog, whatever a big dog is, on like a 2-foot piece of rope just tied around his neck day after day, crying.
Right.
And I didn't call Stray Rescue or like organization. I found a friend that was willing to adopt it, and then, this is stupid, and one night I went out with a knife and cut that dog loose.
Yeah.
And now, you would not recommend people doing that?
As a representative of Stray Rescue, I would not.
Okay.
I would recommend people to call CSB or call Stray Rescue, and we'll respond to it and take the appropriate course of action.
Right.
Although I'm glad the dog got help.
Yeah. So what's the bottom line? Is there a silver lining to this story?
Absolutely. Like I said, and not just Stray Rescue, a lot of organizations in the city are making really great strides, both in kind of the task force kind of framework, and kind of going after these pretty much essentially criminals. Not essentially, they very much are criminals. And then also the community outreach effort and getting into schools and talking to kids and really trying to implement these preventative measures. And Stray Rescue is just very fortunate to have so many amazing adopters and fosters. Speaking of fosters, our shelter, the inn is full, as we say, and if anybody can foster, please come down to Stray Rescue, call Stray Rescue, and we will set you up with a wonderful
dog. We'll have
dog.
that contact information coming right up. Jason, thanks so much for being here
and
telling us about Stray Rescue. And we've got a great story about a good ending, a happy ending coming up. Thanks again, Jason.
Thank you.
We'll be back with more City Corner right after this.
There are a million places you'd never consider texting. So why would you do it while driving? Leave risky driving to the professionals. Stop the texts, and together we can stop the wrecks.
Experience St. Louis!
and say with me, imagine what you'd see if every child had a book to read.
So the mission is for us to get a book to each and every child.
So let's join hands, book people unite, unearth hidden passion. Come on, we'll have a good time. One book can be the first little thing that helps to change a life. Book people unite.
Read to a child today and spark a lifetime of ambition.
Come here.
I love you, Dad.
I'm Steve Potter, and welcome back to City Corner. We have a really inspiring story now talking about a rescued animal. I'd like you to meet Cynthia Willenbrock. Hi, Cynthia. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
And this before us is Marshall, the miracle dog. And Cynthia, Marshall is your dog now.
He is. I adopted him about 2 years ago.
You know, we were talking in the first segment with Jason from Stray Rescue, and pretty disturbing what happens to some neglected and abused animals.
Absolutely.
Was this a cause of yours before Marshall came into your life?
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, Marshall, not that I wasn't already in love with dogs, I grew up with them and had the absolute love of my own for them, but when Marshall came into my life, he changed everything.
I want to read, if I may, something from near the beginning of your book, Marshall the Miracle Dog, and we'll show a picture from the book. And I must say too that the story that you have written, I'll call it a children's book, and it's written from Marshall's point of view. So it's Marshall's voice.
Right.
I awake that day with the same hungry belly I always wake up to. I think I must have had an awful nightmare about being bullied and attacked again by the other dogs. Then I look down into my empty dog bowl, see my reflection, and realize it was not just a bad dream. This is a cut in the side of my face and bite marks all over my body. The worst of all, when I try to stand up, I realize that this time they've broken my leg. And I don't know if our viewers can see, Marshall is missing a leg right here.
Come on, stand.
He's an awful good boy.
He is. He's absolutely amazing. He's never given me a day's trouble since he hopped into my life.
So how did this story begin for you?
Well, I saw the Humane Society had put his video on the website when he was finally ready for adoption. Marshall came from an animal hoarding situation in Missouri, and there were 60 dogs living in an abandoned property. And Marshall was one of the worst cases with all the dogs had been adopted out and were rescued, but Marshall had a severe wound on the side of his shoulder. His face was hanging open like the size of a tennis ball. It was just so severely cut, and he had other bite marks all over his body. But when the Humane Society Rescue Squad did rescue Marshall and all the other dogs, and they were operating on Marshall, he actually died 3 times on the Humane Society operating room table, and they fought along with him. Dr. Schwartz, who's responsible for saving his life, said he had never seen a dog fight so hard to survive. And after about 3 months is when he was ready for adoption. His recovery had been so much that he was ready to find a forever home. And when I saw his video, my thought was, who is going to want a 3-legged dog with a cut in the side of his face? When you see the physical scars, you think there's emotional scars as well.
Right.
And I just thought, this dog does not deserve to be without a home for one more day. And so I was blessed enough to be, I guess, one of the first ones to come forth.
Yeah, but it's so interesting you say emotional scars. That's something to think about because like an abused person, an animal that's been through that is going to have some kind of residual effect. So Was it a struggle at first?
Thank you for asking that, because actually it was. It was an internal struggle for me, and it was an internal struggle for Marshall as well. He had never been in a home before. As I said, he came from an abandoned property, so he hadn't been around furniture, shoes, with all of his needs being met. He had gone straight from the property to the Humane Society, and so it was very unsettling for him at first. And just like a child or a person that's bullied that wants to be invisible and just ignore me and I won't cause any problems, that's what Marshall did. And I thought, that's not going to work in my house, mister. And so I socialized him. And Mushi, my four-legged dog that I already had, taught him so much about how to play, have a good time, how there was no pen here, that we have freedom. And so it took about 6 months for him to start being more playful and trusting of anyone other than me and Mushi, and for his tail to finally come out from underneath his bottom and to start wagging. And I started to have him be an ambassador at the Humane Society Humane Education Department, where children can come in for field trips. And I started seeing the connection children had with Marshall. And that's what started to inspire the fact that I knew he needed to do more. And maybe that's why he fought so hard to survive.
So you started the Marshall Project.
The Marshall Movement, yes.
The Marshall Movement, excuse me.
Yes. And actually, the whole reason for it came about that after I saw most of Marshall's outward signs of abuse and neglect dissipate, he would have these night terrors, Steve. And where I just thought there's some more damage there. And I've always been a writer, but always for an audience of one, for myself. And I thought, it's always been so healing for me. Why not tell Marshall's story from his voice and see if that doesn't help me forgive the hoarder, and also to push him over the final hump into out of that abuse and neglect that was still showing up.
Well, let's share some of the book with our audience then. We've got some of the illustrations from the book, and each page sort of tells a story. Let's look at this next one, and you can sort of explain what the situation is. This was after he was rescued.
So Lauren Heimbaugh is my illustrator and the artist for this book. She is a St. Louisan, 24-year-old KU graduate. She's phenomenal. And this right here is the scene of when Marshall is just pulling up to the Humane Society after being rescued.
Now the next one you mentioned to Dr. Schwartz. You have him.
Yes. And she did a phenomenal job of capturing him. This is where the page in the book where Marshall realizes he's been given a name. And what better way to reveal a name than a collar with the name on it? So that's the obvious page of Dr. Schwartz telling Marshall what his new name is.
And he's called Marshall because he came from the Marshall, Missouri area, right?
Yes, he was found in Marshall, Missouri.
Yeah, Jason earlier was talking about how they have to be creative coming up with names for these animals.
Right.
Let's go to the next one.
So this is a great page that Lauren put together for Marshall is as if he's in school realizing, okay, I can chase squirrels, I can be a normal dog, I can do all the things, I just need to get through my rehab and my recovery.
And the next one, we see that this love and attention is paying off.
Yes, it is, and it's also showing that he finally has safety. He finally has, all of his needs being met. His belly doesn't even have to grumble, and food just shows up in his bowl.
Now, in your book, we'll go to the next one. Now, he's feeling love and attention, but now he realizes he's going to be adopted out, and he's got some second thoughts about that.
He does, and I think that is typical for a child as well. It's like, okay, I'm in a foster home, I'm in an animal shelter, I finally have this safety. What if where I go next is as bad as where I came from? And so you can see Marshall also having apprehensions of, well, who's going to want me? All the other dogs being adopted in forever homes have all their legs and no scars.
So here he's, I guess, saying goodbye to one of the Humane Society workers.
Yeah, they had a tough time letting him go. He was there for 3 months, and he really did inspire all the volunteers and workers there.
So then Cynthia comes into his life. It's you.
Yeah.
And you take him home.
Yes. Yes, and this is a page I actually added, Steve. This is the only true part that I made up in terms of that. I wanted to show that if you are a child and you're being bullied, or if you are, if it's a dog and he may have done something mean, that once the needs are met and they're shown love, that they can change. So I added this scene in the book of Marshall meets the bully that left the scar from the days in the pen, and that he's no longer a bully because he's been shown love. He's now rescued and in a home with all of his needs met.
Cynthia, what do you think? You evidently have a big heart. What I'm getting at, though, is it's no small responsibility to take on an animal that's been abused or neglected. You shouldn't do it lightly. And I'm guessing maybe it's not for everyone.
Perhaps, but what I have found, and it was a struggle at first, I'm not going to lie, I had to do a lot of soul searching and praying at first because I thought it tapped into my own insecurities. Am I enough for him? And so what I did was I sat back and I realized if I just let him teach me how to take care of him, he can be the best teacher of all. So I don't necessarily believe that it's not for everyone. It's just getting quiet enough and allowing your new animal to show you.
Now, what's really exciting, you've written this Marshall the Miracle Dog. It's a great children's book that even an adult would enjoy.
Thank you.
But you've got some plans or things in the works. I know you can't be too specific, but a play, maybe a movie. What's going on?
Yes. Well, it just so happens that my literary agent for the book is married to a movie producer who the manuscript fell into his hands, and he's like, this just needs to be on the big screen. So we are in discussion with a major Hollywood studio right now. Marshall and Mooshie and I are going to be going out there for the production in 2013. And also, a local director of theater is writing it into a musical play for the stage. So a lot of wonderful things about Marshall's story are going to be out there for all the world to enjoy.
You couldn't have imagined all this in the beginning.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's really, I just opened myself up to it and I've let it all kind of come to me. I haven't really been searching it out. So.
One final question for you,
Yes.
Cynthia. We know what you've done for Marshall and what people like you do for animals that they adopt and take care of, but you know, it's a two-way street. He's done things for you, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. He has shown me patience and unconditional love that I didn't even know existed inside of me. I've been a sales rep all my life, so I've been a very fast mover and a shaker, and Marshall has really slowed down my life, and he's also shown me that I have been his voice. I've chosen to be his voice. We go into schools almost every day. I am as healed and as moved as Marshall is from the love and connection that the children have with Marshall. So we together, I think he has rescued me as much as I have rescued him.
Well, Cynthia Willenbrock, bless you, can I say that?
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for bringing Marshall. And
thank you for having us.
he's a great guy. I hope he's a companion of yours for years to come.
Me too.
And we'll be looking forward to the play and the movie. We'll have our sights set on that. We'll have you back. How about that?
Sounds great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have for today's edition of City Corner. Marshall the Miracle Dog. We'll see you next time. Bye.